Hi everyone. So today we are going to start with domain 6 security monitoring. So this domain actually presents security monitoring challenges and solution for cloud environment. It will emphasize the distinct aspect of cloud telemetry. How do you manage the cloud environment using management plane? What are the services and resource logs? Integration to advanced monitoring tools. It also explores the complexity of a hybrid cloud or multi-cloud setup. And on top of that, it actually further highlights what is the role of logs, events, and configuration, and when how you should correlate them, and how does a comprehensive log management also benefits your security monitoring. Lastly, I think this domain, if I checked, is covering artificial intelligence as one of the innovative tool to enhance cloud security. So let's start. I think this is going to be really something good to learn. Okay. Domain 6 security monitoring out of the 12 domain. So in this domain, we are going to learn about identifying unique security monitoring challenges in cloud. What is the importance of cloud telemetry sources? How do you analyze? How do you collect? How do you define the architecture when you are defining the security telemetry? Recognizing different monitoring and alert uh, options, which are the foundation for the cloud security. On top of that, how does the entire cloud security, or how you can define it comprehensively, what you need to monitor, what logs you need to collect, how does it correlate, how do you use AI in order to bring them together and then have kind of a automated solution as well. So let's start. Quite a many things to learn. So cloud monitoring. So you first have to understand what is a log. So log actually provides records of system activities that can include creation, read, update, and delete operation. It's actually used for a long-term analysis. Also, log delivery can take time, like it can have a latency while the logs is created. They are transferred over to your, let's say, a SIM solution or a CloudWatch solution, and then you need to do analysis on that. In contrast to event, which focus more on the system changes or the activities being performed. So it could be a create activity, update, or delete. To give an example, like you have a user. When the user was created, what was the parameters they were updated, and then when it was deleted. Similarly, could be a file, could be any other services that is turned on, turned off. Okay. They are mostly temporary. They are actually mostly focused on alerting. That means you have an event, then you have a specific security alert or an alert that needs to be triggered. Okay, so that one lack actually detailed context of the logs, but all in all, you have to understand that events are identified using the log sources or the logs. Okay, so when we say we are performing a cloud monitoring, what are the key terms? So first I have to understand management plane. So whenever you are accessing any console, could be a CLI, could be an API, this is where you are actually performing the task or your or performing your administrative action. So it's like a captain navigating a ship, okay? Like a console I mentioned, okay? So you have to monitor it very closely. You have to monitor who all is logging in, what are the privileges they have, right? On top of that, you have velocity. Velocity comes, as I said, is more of a speed. Okay, so but it has to be agile. That means your processes have to be, or the security processes must be agile. That means they should be implemented rapidly, and then you should be able to make decisions in a effective way. Okay. Distribution and segregation is more about compartmentalization. That means you have a big warehouse where you have put compartments, and then how do these compartments relate to each other? That means you have one compartment, let's say, for your web applications, okay? And then you have a web interface, you have another compartment for that. Then you have a database. How all these are generating resources. So there could be another compartment where you are pushing all your logs, okay? So that talks about the degree of centralization. Cloud sprawl is when you are creating diverse workflows. Okay, you are creating many services. You are maybe utilizing EC2. You are using maybe network resources, and when these assets are actually created, how they are actually dispersed, that means how they are across the different platforms, which further complicates your monitoring and management. How we can address that? Let's say you have a geolocation, you are operating from different locations, US and Singapore or India. Okay, then you need to have their own log mechanism, because you can't expect the logs being created in Singapore to go to US or India due to the latency, though you can do that, but again there's a latency. So you have to find a mechanism whether you aggregate all the logs locally, and then all these logs have to go through and to a centralized location where your SOC or your managed SOC is set up, where they can monitor all the logs. Okay. On top of that, if you remember in domain 1 or 2, we were talking about SSRM, which is shared security responsibility model. That actually indicates what is the responsibility of a cloud service provider and what is a responsibility for cloud uh, customer. So you have to allocate who will handle what when you are spinning up a service, how the logs are being created, how they are saved and all. Okay. So as I mentioned about logs and events, definitely logs is more towards it's a foundation of security monitoring, while events is more towards triggering a security alert or an alert. Okay, it is more to identify any anomaly, can be used for forensics and operational insight, and there are different for each CSP. Okay, yeah. So these are the key terms. Make note of that. Quite important, especially management plane and allocation and responsibility. These are two key terms. Thank you. Okay. Um, Quite an important term, security posture management. Whenever you're talking about uh, cloud security, on-prem security, you have to talk about the posture. But again, what exactly is a posture? So posture will refer about organization's overall defense readiness against any potential threat. Very key term, very important term, something you have to understand and learn. Okay. Now, what you are exactly performing? You are performing, or you're doing a continuous monitoring of the organization cloud's configuration. That means whatever you have configured, you are analyzing it on a regular basis. Okay, regular interval could be a quarter, could be annually, could be weekly as well. Okay, but again, what you're doing, you are trying to compare it with a certain baseline, and then you see whether our baseline has been changed, deviated, there are misconfiguration, are we adhering to the best practices, or even then best practices have changed, things have evolved. Okay, and also are we able to alert on the potential vulnerabilities, attack vectors, and are we able to prioritize on the remediation process. So all in all, security posture management or posture management is something which talks about your readiness, right? Now, in a cloud services, the benefit you have is easy to review. That means you can run simple queries so that you can analyze and identify what are the capabilities and how you can actually set up a baseline, how do you can see the deviation. So they are quite important. Okay. When we talk about cloud telemetry sources, we are referring to the visibility into the organization's cloud environment. When I say that, it's like what you see, what you hear, what is happening in the cloud environment, and what actions you can take. Let's say you have an administrator who's performing some tasks. There is something about an automated process. Okay, so could be relate to your health, it could be performance, could be security. Okay, so don't only treat it with let's say security. All right. Okay, so when again going back to the basics, whenever we are talking about cloud telemetry sources, we are referring to these four major categories. First one, management plane. As I mentioned, this is where all your key activities take action. All your services turning on, onboarding, offboarding of the services, critical components implementation, all this through goes management plane logs. Okay. Now you have service logs. So more of the cloud is based on API, as we all know. So then you have something called as access logs. Okay, through your API. Again, similarly, you have VPC logs for your NetFlow. If you are using a function or serverless, again, um, all this will have the activity logs, what activity is being performed, okay, and what access has been given. So understand access logs, activity logs within service logs, right? Now coming to resource logs. So resource logs are all your workloads. All your workloads. That means your virtual machine, your instances which are running, could be a VPC, could be a databases, could be your object based storage, okay, and your snapshots. So again, all depends in the nature, okay. So they have their own logs. To give an example, within Windows itself, okay, within Windows itself you have system log, you have application log. Let's say it's a domain control, then you have Active Directory log, you have federation services. So you have specific logs, but you have to little bit understand what kind of logs are available. People always get confused what is difference between an access log and an activity log. And there are two different reviews, right? So we have to understand what is different type of logs, right? Now, when we talk about cloud tools, they also generate their own logs. That means you're doing a posture management. Okay, you have a security broker. That means you are using a third-party service as an interface to your cloud. Okay, then you have cloud native application, right? Then you have analytics for IAM or any cloud detection response. So all in all, they will have their own logging mechanism, but this is something which we all need. So it's called as cloud telemetry sources, which actually what you see, what you hear, what is happening in your cloud environment. And it's again, you just continuously collect and share this detail and do a continuous improvement. Thank you. Okay, this slide is in continuation with the slide number 4, where we talk about cloud telemetry sources. This is more of a something which you can make a note just to understand how do they or where when we refer to management plane log, what exactly which component within the cloud we are referring to. So again, management plane logs is mostly about console, GUI, your application, command line, and this is where you actually have option for your resources are being created, they have been modified, updated, and they all are reported there. So this is where you actually have the major chunk to play. These are all the privilege access, right? And to give an example, AWS called is CloudTrail, and Microsoft Azure has called as audit logs, right? Okay. Then service and application logs. These are the logs which are captured in a wide range depending upon the activity of specific services, and they are more often identifying an event. Okay, something happened. When I say event, something happened. So you have logs for that, but on the basis of log, you understand the events. On the events basis, you actually create alerts. Okay, so understand the correlation between all of them. Resource logs, again, you have different resources. You have a virtual machine, you have a database, you have SaaS environment, you have network, firewalls, WAF, proxies. So all these are actually your log sources. They are generating their own logs whenever you create an EC2. When it turns up, turns down, service goes up, service goes down. Let's say it's the virtual machine is in degraded state, or maybe one of the network Ethernet card, a virtual Ethernet card is degraded, it's down state. So all this is coming under resource logs. All right. Okay. And then we come to the cloud native tools. There are a couple of them. The next slide will also follow up. But let's talk about uh, the posture management tools. They are actually called as cloud native application protection platform. Terms I don't think you have to uh, remember, but again, just have an understanding that they are more of a concept. I would say they are not a tool. That means if you go in a market and say I need a CSPM, no, there is nothing that like of that. You have to ask we are looking for a posture management, but how do you do it? You do a compliance scan, do you do different kind of monitoring, you create a baseline. Okay, so CSPM, cloud security posture management, it actually helps organization to do a continuous monitoring and also to a benchmark and relate to the benchmark that whether we are deviating, we are compliant or non-compliant. Okay, majorly for misconfiguration, compliance violation, assess the security risk, and what are the resource capabilities. When I say resource capabilities, could be the health factor. Okay, and don't forget that health is also part of availability as a CIA trial, right? Okay, then we go to cloud workload platform protection, CWPP. Okay, this is more toward the key differentiator is ability to perform the scan on modern workload types. Okay, in the previous one, we were referring to generic or basic services or services which are commonly used by anyone who's using an I would say cloud environment, right? But within CWPP, you have talking about containers, Kubernetes, uh, function as a service. So that is where the difference comes in. Okay. Moving to next slides, we have some more cloud native tools. So let's go through them. So moreover, this slide, don't remember the actual acronyms and all that. You don't have to remember that, but understand the logic. Okay. So when we read through, then understand why it is needed, rather than what is it exactly, because you achieve it in a different way. Okay. The first one says data security posture management. So the keyword is data security. So how do we understand what is the data and how it is managed in our environment? So the first thing is how you do a data discovery. You have a data, how you do a data discovery, how you understand what data you have. You have to classify the data. Okay. Whether you have an encryption policy enforcement in place. That means, are you encrypting all your data in transit, in rest? Okay. Do you have a proper access control to safeguard any unauthorized access? So to avoid any kind of data breaches or insider threat. So DSPM is something could be implemented in a SaaS, PaaS. So to give an example, you can implement a database activity monitoring solution to manage your databases. So the data which is coming in, going out, deletion, updates, it can be updated, right? That's very important. Then also you can have different SaaS solution, could be a WAF solution where you are seeing the data coming in or the applications making a query, what kind of queries they are. Do they hold any kind of sensitive data? Let's say the NRIC numbers or the credit card numbers. You can mask them, right? Okay. Going to application security posture management, again, is more talking about the application itself, not about the data. Application, that means how you protect your application. So it's more between your security team, your operations team, and the developers. So how they all manage and remediate and prioritize all the vulnerabilities. That means when you perform any application deployment, are you performing a SAST? That means source code analysis. Are you actually performing a DAST? Are you doing any kind of fuzzy checks, regression testing? Then are you doing a software composition analysis? That means your application is built using third-party tools. Are you checking that part, right? So this all comes under application security posture management. Then you have cloud infrastructure entitlement management. This is more about the principle of least privilege. So are you implementing the principle of least privilege? That means ensure all the users application service have only necessary access to perform the function. They should not have too much of access, that is called an access creep. Then you don't have too low access so they can't perform their regular operation. So they should have the principle of least privilege, what is needed to perform my regular or necessary task, right? Now, coming to cloud detection responses, again, this one is more towards nowadays we are using AI, but even in cloud, there are SOAR solutions, or you have typical SIM solutions where you're actually defining the use cases. You are generating reports on the use cases provided by the SIM solution, putting a criticality or severity to the asset, and then how you correlate the alert, or you get the alert. You get the logs, then you get analysis of the logs, then you understand what are the events taking place and what has to be alerted. So all in all, it goes in. And this can also be something, let's say you want to do a automatic correlation, and then you also want a response to that. That means if I see an external IP that could be marked as a C2, maybe from a trend micro website, I see it's a C2, and then I go and block it right away. So this all comes into detection and response, right? Lastly, what we have is SaaS security posture management. Yes, it, as the name indicates, is more about the SaaS. So you have tools like an Office 365, you have different applications. What you are actually doing, are they properly configured? They have a proper entitlement. Are they being patched properly? While you don't have control on the patches, but again, you can actually read about them. When is the new version release? What are the reasons for that? Um, as a cloud service provider, the provider will provide you with the SaaS application, but all the configuration is something which is the responsibility of the cloud customer. So always understand SSRM. That means how do we have the shared responsibility among cloud service provider and the customer. Okay. So all in all, as I mentioned again, no need to remember the exact terms. Understand the logic: data security, application security, cloud infrastructure entitlement, cloud detection and response, and SaaS security posture management. Okay, guys, thanks. Okay. Uh, Something funny you will see on this slide. You will see on the right side, I found a picture. There's something I always remember, easy to remember, I would say. So whenever you're performing any cloud telemetry sources, Understand your logs are the key or the foundation of the entire exercise. Okay, I've also provided a non-exhaustive list. Okay, there are a couple of things which I just want to highlight. I personally feel is important, and also in the CCSP prep kit it's actually highlighted. Okay, so what you see is you have access management, you have resource management, and logging and monitoring. These are the key telemetry sources. When you say access management, you are referring to any unauthorized API calls, any changes to IAM policy or access of the root account or MFA access, or somebody logging without an MFA. Similarly, for resource, you have an S3 bucket, something got changed or the policy got changed, it become public, it's a leaking bucket, right? So again, group changes, any security groups added, deleted, VPC changes, they're key under resource management. Logging and monitoring, again, are you logging all the services or the configuration changes? Okay, how are the management consoles being accessed? Are there authentication failures or all that? So all in all, what you are actually getting is they are being logged. Once they are logged, then you have an events happening, and the events happening, you can get an alert. So similarly, the picture which depicts is in a crisis, your logs have to be safe so that you can do analysis, you can do forensics, you can go back and check what happened, what went wrong, how we can improve it. So it could be a continuous improvement, it could be something forensics. So all in all, the picture I purposefully added just for you to reminding that the logs or the event logs are really key to this telemetry sources. Thank you. Okay, collection architecture. So this is more of how you are collecting the logs in your environment. Okay, so there is no single correct collection. When you go and work with different architects, they have a different views. Even I have seen with different security practitioners, they have different views how to collect the log. Should be locally, should be somewhere external, should be centralized, decentralized. So there are different ways. Again, one size doesn't fit all. So again, you have to see what and how you have to perform it. Okay, so work with your cloud provider or maybe your security architect or your architect just to understand what will be the best strategy for you. Okay, more important, I would say log storage and retention. That's the key. Okay, where are you storing the logs? Is the logs in cloud or they are in external storage? And on top of that, what is the integrity of the logs? Can somebody go and modify the logs, or they are under WOM? That means write once and read many. Okay, again, there's always a cost associated with moving the logs from one location to another. That means, let's say you are generating logs in Singapore, and then you are exporting that log or sending the logs out of Singapore to US or India. So that could be not that cost effective. And on top of that, in case you want to perform any kind of a query that requires compute, does it make sense to do computation in other regions or doing in our own region? Okay, so these are the key factors you have to understand. Again, as I mentioned, integrity of log. With the logs, are they secure, they are safe? What kind of solution you are using? Do you have an hybrid environment, you have multi-cloud environment? And what is the retention limitation? That means retention could be dictated by the compliance. That means I need to have minimally 12 months of records or logs in my system, or that is 1 year, could be 7 years, or could be 10 years. That again depends upon the compliance requirement or the standards you are following. Okay, when it comes to putting up an architecture, the basic one is always something is a hierarchy approach. That means, let's say you have logs coming from production, test, and dev environment. You aggregate them into one single location. You can have a different naming scheme for them to identify. Hence, when you perform any query, you can say that I want to run the query on production, and when you put a prefix to that, that means I know that this is only running for production, and that way you can actually uh, perform. So you do one aggregation at one location, and the typical term you will see in SIM is called collector and aggregator. Okay, so you collect the logs and then you aggregate them. Maybe it's a raw log, it's a normalized log, and then you send it to SIM for analytics purpose. Then the top of the thing could be your SIM solution. I purposefully added these two pictures. One is from the book itself. The other one I found very informative, very logical. If somebody asks you what is a feature of a SIM, okay, so you have log processing, or you start with log collection, log processing, then you have a storage, Then you perform a query, correlation, you have a dashboard to view, you create different alerts, you can use it for incident management. So there are multiple things which you can, or SIM can help you. So again, depending upon whether you need a SIM solution, you need some a syslog server where you just store the logs, or you need a SOAR. It all depends on your requirement. But do understand, you can even start just with collecting the logs, then you can also expand it to do the processing, collection, storage, querying, correlation. Then you can also use a SOAR where it does a detection and response capabilities. You can go further to use an AI environment to actually respond and perform everything end to end. Okay, so again, not one size fit all. So again, you have to think and work with your cloud provider, with your security architect or your security practitioner to understand and make a proper architecture. Okay, so now we also have the term AI, which is a buzzword these days, artificial intelligence, and how you can correlate or use it for security monitoring. So understand what is the greatest challenge. Most of us, when we are working as a manager or a top tier, we don't understand something that when it comes to analysis or review, it is a very daunting task. Everything is very difficult at times. You have to see logs from all directions, different IPs, do the correlation, and then there are multiple teams which have to involve. Okay, so you actually get burnout. Your employees get burnout. So you have to understand what is the greatest challenge. The greatest challenge is to process this huge amount of data coming from different log sources, from different machines, from different in different formats, and how you understand them and how you can correlate them so that it can give you a very specific pointed reason that what went wrong, what was done. Okay, and on top of that, if they are not automated, it is very difficult. Okay, so with the use of machine learning and AI, which can assist you, they can actually help you out to do all your anomaly detection. That means unusual patterns in your traffic. Let's say you have a C2 traffic, or maybe you are combining your threat feeds into with the AI. So that means it takes a threat feed. It says, yeah, I can see a C2 traffic or an IP which is not trusted. Then actually it finds that it is sending out data. You can identify those kind of behavior, or you see a specific IP or a host being active only in off production hours, right? So you can make use of those patterns which can be done by your artificial intelligence or machine learning systems, right? Then you can have threat intel information. Threat hunting also can be performed. Again, you can have different hypotheses, you can have different scenarios, you can actually get real-time information, you can even perform real-time actions on those alerts which are generated. Okay, again, automated response. You see something, you want to take an action, you can write a workflow. This workflow will go and actually maybe disable the service, block the VPC, or change the policy for S3. It could do multiple things. Again, this can be done. It can be automated. Okay. Again, it overall, you do need human intervention. Okay, it's not that everything can be automated. Again, but if you have things or you have tools which are helpful to assist an analyst, is going to be the best combination. You have people who are working on it, but then you have major chunk of data that can be analyzed by the systems and then give you an answer, right? Okay, so I also find something really. I was surfing the internet and I found something very good. So if somebody asks you what is the benefit of this proactive approach or AI, you can actually mention about, you can have early threat detection. You can reduce the time to do the analysis. You can minimize the impact in case you want to uh, automate the system and you want to take an action immediately. Then your compliance, you can perform a compliance check, compliance scan, which is these days available from all the cloud service providers. Again, enhanced incident response. Very important, very key. The reason is, when the things happen, you have an incident, you have to respond to it, you have to have an action. But there are ways which can be done through AI. And all these five things, I personally feel, yeah, is quite important. Something for you to remember in all your discussions. Okay. So that's all I think for domain 6. Quite quite a good domain, I would say. Spend some time. If you're not still clear, just go and read about different topics. But I think this should be sufficient enough. Thank you, guys. Okay, I want to thank you again. So, like and subscribe the channel, and I'll be adding more videos soon. Thanks a lot.